Fundamentals is back with another juicy topic. This week, we explore the intricacies of recruitment of team members, both students and mentors, from a system that pulls from several large sources of students. In this environment, there are challenges associated with outreach, demonstrations, and settling students and mentors into a team. This and more will be explained tonight on Fundamentals.
This video on First Updates Now is made possible by viewers like you and also the following sponsors. Did you know that over 30% of the student population at Kettering University was in high school robotics? These same students have received a portion of over $7 million from robotics scholarships from Kettering University. See why so many in First choose to go to Kettering University at kettering.edu. If you're a college student or recent graduate looking for an incredible internship, take a look at Stryker. Stryker provides a housing stipend, great pay, and an opportunity to work with state-of-the-art medical technology equipment. Discover why so many First alumni are coming to Stryker for their internship or career at careers.stryker.com.
Welcome to Fundamentals, Fun's topic-specific bites of success, where we focus and hone on important subjects every team should know about and bring those to the First community to share their expertise to make your team better, be it rookie or veteran, searching for that first blue banner or a world champion. I'm your host, Sky Leak, with Team 2767 Strike Force, and my co-host today is from 3847 Spectrum in Texas and a Woody Flowers Award recipient, Alan Gregory.
Thanks, Guy. Today's topic is team recruitment. So let's welcome our guest, Andrew Hartnett from 5414 Paradox from Pearland, Texas. Andrew, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your program?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, I got to go back to what Sky said, though, of chasing the first blue banner. And we have gotten some chairman's awards, but man, it stung a little deep with our 7 straight event finalists or whatever it is. So yeah, that's funny. But yeah, anyways, my name's Andrew Hartnett. I started in FRC in 2005 on FRC 451 Cat Attack. And then I mentored for a little bit while I was in college at Purdue, which I recommend you don't mentor while you're in college. Do as I say, not as I do. But yeah, had a great time with 1646, made some good friends there, then mentored with 2936 from 2011 to 2014. And then in the summer of 2014, a lot of things just kind of fell in my lap where it felt like it made sense to start Paradox. And so I've been the lead mentor for Paradox since that summer of 2014. And I've learned a lot of new things in the last 8 years with the team for sure. I guess I'll also add real quick. I'm a computer engineer, currently working at NASA Johnson Space Center. And so I co-opted while I was in college and got my 5 sessions there and have been full-time since 2010.
Great.
All right.
Can you tell us a little bit about the schools as well and the whole team?
Yeah, so we're in Pearland ISD, which is right outside of Houston, Texas. Houston's actually one of the most diverse cities in the nation, and Pearland is actually one of the most diverse suburbs of Houston. And so it's always kind of interesting looking into those types of things. And how can we try to make sure that our team is representative of our community, the school community that we pull some from. So I have some numbers I can kind of roughly share, but maybe the main thing that I'll point out is that for Pearland ISD, I think 33% of the population is white, which leaves about 66% of the population as some minority. Which is a pretty large minority pool to pull from. Some other things about the district, when we talk about, recruiting and different things that, maybe matter to our team and different obstacles and hardships other teams have, are when you look at Texas as a state as a whole, about 60% of students are identified as economically disadvantaged. When you look at Pearland ISD, that number is closer to 20-25%. So we are from an area that, many of our students are fortunate to not be economically disadvantaged. And so some of that probably has an impact in what is successful for us that we would have to modify if we were somewhere else.
Right. Can you speak a little bit just and this actually goes to both of you, Alan and Andrew, a little bit just Texas in general. I'm a North Dakota kid, Michigan, transplant. So can you kind of contextualize like how big are schools, and maybe to some extent too not diving too deep maybe into this, but like the distances involved is some of the stuff you need to do?
Yeah, those are really good questions and always important to contextualize. So, Pearland ISD has a total of 23 different campuses and 21,000 students across the whole district, with just shy of 7,000 students in the high schools. So, Pearland ISD has 3 high schools. 2 of them are Dawson and Pearland, and then there's a third school, Turner College and Career School, high school, or something like that, which is the school that we meet at. And so that school is actually, I don't know if it's officially a school of choice or not, but it's one that our Dawson and Pearland students can choose to take classes at Turner. And there's more trades there. So there's welding classes, HVAC classes, things for veterinary science and dentistry, and all sorts of really cool things that growing up in Ohio, I didn't see those types of classes made easily accessible to people. So really cool things happen at Turner. You can graduate with your associate's degree, things like that as well. And so certainly some of our students get some really awesome hands-on experience from their classes as well. Distances is, I think, really hard to judge. I always have this picture in my mind, and I'm not 100% sure if this is accurate. Alan, you may know as well, because I think you've spent some time in Michigan or have family in Detroit or something. But Beltway 8, we have 2.5 loops around the center of Houston. And I think Beltway 8 spans a distance that would pretty much cover from like Toledo, Ohio to Ann Arbor, Michigan. Like it, the loop is huge. It covers a large space. And so I live about 14 miles from Pearland, and it can take me anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes to make that travel, depending on traffic, what's going on the highway, things like that. So things can take a long time to move from space to space. Within the high schools, it's probably 15 minutes from high school to high school. Between Dawson and Turner and Pearland. Turner and Pearland are like right next to each other. But.
Yeah, so if we're looking at for Spectrum, we're also a Houston team, but it's a good 35 minutes for us to go down to Paradox. So we actually use them as they have a full practice field, and we'll practice with them, and we'll go down for different events and things. And it's definitely not short, and that's if there's not a lot of traffic. That's definitely not during rush hour. Our schools, we're 2 private schools, so we have about 1,000 students, a little over 1,000 students at Straight Jesuit, which is an all-boys school, and about 900 students at St. Agnes, which is an all-girls school. And so we pull from both to get about a 2,000 student population. But the weird thing is, because they're private schools, we have students from the entirety of the Houston area. So at one point, we had students who, if they wanted to drive from house to house, would probably have been about a 2-hour drive, because they were all the way down in like almost Galveston, which is really far away, and north of like Tomball, which is even farther away. And those are all considered part of Greater Houston. If you go back all the way in through Texas, when we started out first in Texas, we've had a 9-hour drive to get to an in-district event before. It gets very, very long distances. Some of the schools are very rural. A lot of the teams are centered around the main population centers that you've heard of: Dallas, Austin, Houston, San Antonio. But we do have a lot of rural teams from Bowie and all sorts of little places that you wouldn't have necessarily heard of. But they're still able to get and recruit students and generate and have teams and be successful.
Right. So with the large school models that both of you, at least as far as I'm concerned, are both huge schools, because I graduated with a class of 13 people. And with 5414 pulling from no less than 3 of these at once, and Spectrum from 2, what does the basic kind of recruitment process look like, and how do you get the word out and keep interest with students and get the information to the people that need it, the parents, the students, etc.?
Yeah, so one of the things that we changed to, let me give some background context real quick. In 2018, we had all of our founding students that stayed on from 2015, 16, 17, 18. They graduate in 2018. And that was like 25 of the 35 students on our team in 2018 graduated. And we knew that we had failed at recruiting and retaining students. And I think a big reason for that failure on my part as a mentor, was we didn't do a good job of taking away, or not taking away, but making sure that our new students coming in had that work to do. We kind of went to our go-tos of the people that were our founding members that knew how to do it. And we didn't do a good job of making them train our new students, integrating them into the team, whatever. So that year 2018, when we graduated a bunch of our students on the team, we knew we had to change how we were recruiting and change how we would try to retain students. So I've got a flyer that we can kind of share that we now send out to all of our 8th grade students. And so basically what happens is in the May timeframe, before the end of the school year, before everyone goes away for the summer, we send out, we've been able to work with our school district to send out a email blast to all 8th grade parents. And so it may seem a little wordy. If an 8th grader read this, I guarantee they wouldn't look at more than the pictures pretty much, right? They're not doing anything with it. But because it goes out to our 8th grade parents, they read the details and they might be like, oh, I think my kid would like this, or I'm going to make my kid do this, or whatever it is that goes on in 8th grade parents'
So
mind
this is
about with
direct
this
to the
information.
parents.
Direct to the
Direct to the
parents.
parents. Okay.
And maybe some other information in here too is that in 2017, we got our superintendent to join or attend the World Championship with us. And that really encouraged him to help us get FTC teams in all of our junior highs. So we've got junior highs that are 7th and 8th grade. So we've got, 8th grade students that are in FTC now that our high school students have to go mentor as part of their requirements to be able to go to competitions. And so I think between those 8th grade FTC students that have Paradox mentors, and then this flyer that goes out to our 8th grade parents, we end up having an informational session in the end of May that we'll have like 100 people show up to. Now, granted, that's 100 people total, so that might be somewhere between 30 and 50 students bringing 1 or 2 parents in with them or a sibling or something like that. And I'm not 100% sure, which bullets matter the most to the parents. Definitely some of them are going to be, they want their kids to have access to scholarships or working with professional engineers. Some of them know their kids love STEM and robots and programming. And I always hope that we have some that are like, hey, you could work with technical people and do, your picture taking or videography. That's all good technical work too. And you'll be a core part of this team as well. So you can see one of the things that we have in it too is we have a QR code that doesn't get used very often. I always do it, and then I try to incorporate like a tracking aspect of it. And usually people just end up doing the link one way or another. I don't know if they just manually type in the link or what, but we have basically a survey that we ask people to fill out to get information about our informational session.
So you touched on one thing there that I hadn't actually heard of before, well, at least in a formal sense. Having your FRC students go down and mentor your FTC. Now, I'm sure there's lots of teams that work within the same space, and that happens. But as a requirement, was that really like? Did that kind of happen naturally, or did you have to force that to kind of happen just to ensure long-term sustainability? Or
I think it happens a little bit more naturally now, but it was something that we had to force at the beginning. Just some background, this isn't original to us by any means, as much as I wish I could claim credit. I know 118 works similarly. One of our mentors, Kara, was a 118 alum, and even back in 2005, 118 had requirements for their students to go off and mentor. I think at the time it may have been early teams or something else in the elementary and junior high levels. And so we really love that aspect of it. And it's obvious, of course, that 118 has some really bright students. And I think being able to work when they're in elementary and junior high with those high school students has a huge impact on that. My dream, really, the thing that I think is really cool is that, if we have a high school student at a junior high level mentoring those kids, when those kids come onto Paradox, they already feel a little bit like they're part of the team. They know some of those people. They respect them. They can hopefully know they can go to them and ask questions. And similarly, our upperclassmen have developed some trust, hopefully, with those students that have joined that are rookies that usually, nobody really knows who the freshmen are or what they can do, or maybe have a whole lot of trust that they accomplish a task. And so we're still working on that. We kind of had that building up, and then the pandemic, of course, reset us back to zero. But I have trust and faith that process is going to work out for us, and we see a little bit of that already. So,
yeah, and that kind of leads me a little bit to what Spectrum might be doing, kind of blurring the lines with early students that are just joining a program or recruitees.
So we're in a little bit of a different situation. Like I said, we're private schools. So we'll have students. We don't have the luxury of just being an entire school district team, which is great, where you can get that full support and kind of who's feeding into you. So we have students coming from, last I heard, I think it was somewhere like 25 or 26 middle schools in one of our last freshman classes. because they're from all over Houston. So we really have no way to like really go out and start a bunch of teams or do anything like that. So what we do is during our open houses, where we're basically getting those students who are going to be applying to our school, we try to make sure we have a presence at both of those. We have postcards that I think is on screen right now that go out showing go out in like the material that goes out to all of the potential applicants when they come through open house. They all get a bunch of information about the clubs and things at the school. And so that's one of the ways we do it. And then as soon as we kind of know that the students are coming, several of the schools will have accepted student nights that we'll be a part of. So like once they know that they're accepted and they're kind of choosing which school they're going to go to if they applied to multiple, we'll also be there to kind of talk to them. So we're trying to recruit some of those people to join our team as early as we can. And then a lot of it is still working with our school kind of in their normal club team recruitment process in the fall, where they have club fairs. We'll have like pep rallies, anything where we can kind of have a presence at the school early on. We do a lot to try to recruit early, but then we'll also, because we can be really flexible and the FRC doesn't really, our competition season is in the second semester. We're able to recruit all through the first semester. We'll have students even join sometimes in the middle of competition season. We're pretty open, and that gives the students a lot of flexibility to be able to say, oh, maybe I didn't want to do this other club or something. Or we've even had a lot of students who have been injured in sports and they can't play anymore.
Right.
So they'll come and join our team. So we're constantly recruiting. There's kind of like sign up signs. We have trophy cases that kind of display what we're doing. We'll try to be on the morning announcement video system type thing. Anything where we can get more of a presence in both schools to try to get students interested whenever we can.
Right, to kind of let the whole thing steep into the general culture.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to add on to something there too. So, yeah, we definitely have some things where we try to get in the morning announcements or the extracurricular like sign up day or whatever that is in early August or mid-August, whenever it is that students are coming back to school. But there's so much going on during those times. Spectrum doesn't have the luxury of trying to do something different. But I think a key part to our success when we changed to this method and going into the 2019 year was doing it in May before they go away for the summer. And then when they're coming back in high school and they're, getting hit from a bunch of different things. What is it that I want to do in high school? And trying to get in there a little bit earlier, I think really helped us out in being a little bit stronger with our recruiting. Certainly not capable for Spectrum as easily. But if you're with a team that you can do that, try to get them in May, the 8th graders in May. It's really good.
And just getting yourself in front of a large audience. I know recently we were talking before the show, and you mentioned with Texas and high school football, how you managed to get yourself in front of a large audience that way.
Yeah, so great lead into that. I've got a Jumbotron video that we can show here. So if you're not from the Houston or if you're not from Texas or haven't watched Friday Night Lights or whatever it is, high school football is a big deal in Texas. And the Pearland ISD has a large football stadium called the Rig. They've got a Jumbotron up there. And we were able to kind of manage to get our way in after the World Champs to have a video that showed a little bit about our team and the upcoming informational night that was May 25th, back in May. And yeah, that was exciting for us. I can't believe that we were able to make that happen. So that was great.
All right. And then I guess jumping back to Alan, or actually just open in general, any other kind of just recruitment tidbits you might just word of mouth things, like little phrases you might use or ways you might ask people to explain things to their friend or their parents that you might use?
So one of the kind of along that same line, one of the things we try to do too is to make sure that the teachers in our school know kind of what our program is and that they can direct their students to it. So one of the best ways that we often get students is because a teacher identifies someone who may not have other extracurriculars, they might not be doing something, or just been, hey, this student has an aptitude for this type of stuff you do, and they kind of bring them over and direct them to us. And that works really well. So getting that relationship with the entire staff who are interacting with your students all the time, especially if your coaches aren't on campus. Like Andrew and I run our teams, but we're not on campus during the school day. We're not teaching classes.
Right.
So if you have those connections, that helps a lot to get the students that you can't necessarily see. If they're not willing to make the effort and come to one of your informational sessions or sign up or send that email, if you have other people in your schools kind of recruiting for you, that can help a lot.
Yeah, that's actually how I was recruited onto my high school team. There's a lot to be said about that personal touch of being directly talked to and asked to come check out the team.
Yeah,
It's a lot
especially
different than
with
seeing that mass flyer.
yeah, especially when you've got certain students that identify with certain teachers, if you've, that trust certain teachers and get directed like that. Makes a lot of sense. Before we get into our next discussion, let's bring on producer Tyler to talk a little bit about our wonderful friends from Stryker.
Hey, thanks a lot, Sky. Yeah, Striker and Striker Careers. Make sure you go check them out at careers.stryker. You know a lot about Striker, you heard about them, but you might not know that they are opening up the rotational program soon for recruitment. So if you're interested in many of the different rotational programs that they have, if you're in college right now, an undergraduate or graduate degree, Striker's looking for you. Great pay, and they take care of you well. And of course, they support you being in First. They love people who are from First. Go check them out at careers.stryker.com. Once again, recruitment opening up in September, so go check it out. Click on the rotational programs. Lots of different opportunities for you out there. So thanks a lot to Stryker and all their support of keeping fun, loud, live, and independent.
Andrew, I know Paradox has established some specific programs to help strengthen the diversity of your team and become more inclusive. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, I'd absolutely love to. So, a lot of these have been born out of various experiences people have had, some on the team, some not. And so, a few years ago, pre pandemic even, we had started an initiative we called Girls Get Together. And so, I think I've got a slide here for our Girls Get Together. And it's kind of evolved over time. It started out, I think, as just kind of a thing that we would do at competitions. We try to bring in STEM professionals that could talk about their experience about being a woman in STEM, their college experience, and what they might experience in their day-to-day jobs. And that evolved into actually having a weekly meeting, just a 15, 20-minute tag up, however long it is that we want, at the end of every Friday or at the end of every Saturday. And it's an opportunity for everyone on the team to come, but specifically for the girls on our team to share about experiences they've had. It could be something they've experienced on the team at a competition or outside of robotics altogether. And we, especially with a large team like ours, our team size can be anywhere from 50 to 80 people at a meeting. And sometimes these girls don't get a good chance to network and bond or really build each other up. I think a big part of what I've learned over the last few years is that if you show up to a place and you feel kind of different than everybody else, you may not want to show back up, even if they're reasonably welcoming. Don't do anything to purposely exclude you. It can really be helpful if you identify with people that you can relate to. So our Gearbox Girls meetings are intentionally set up to build that and encourage each other, push each other to kind of maybe do something that is new and different that they, didn't want to. I think a lot of robotics teams, and we can sometimes have this as well, the girls on the teams get pushed into media or chairman's or outreach type stuff rather than the technical hands-on work. And by getting the girls into the room together, it's definitely been amazing to me to see sometimes the girls be like, no, you should go, do whatever technical task it is that somebody was talking about wanting to do, and that encouragement to build up. So that's been really cool. And then similarly, after some of the George Floyd stuff during the pandemic, some of the students on our team wanted to build up a similar group for the Black students on our team. And so we built up the Brilliant Black Builders. Again, we started with a virtual event that was getting Black STEM professionals in a virtual panel to be able to take students from Black youth in the country. We did one again at the we did one at the World Championships this year. And we have a meeting on either every Friday or Saturday for about 15 minutes, and it's a similar thing. I've definitely seen some years where I don't think that our demographics are representative of the school district's demographics. And I hope that things like this help make students feel comfortable showing up and bonding with one another or feeling welcomed. I think that it's been successful so far, but the Brilliant Black Builders is a newer thing. So we're still trying to see, where that's going to grow. We had some of our key people for that graduate this year. And so I'm hoping some of our younger students will take some ownership of it and keep that going strong. So
how long did it take for you to go from conceptualizing something of this nature to, expand diversity or to make sure that you're plenty representative, to actually implementing and getting it out there? I mean, obviously you said it had some room to grow still,
Oh yeah.
But just getting it actually started, how long did that take from A to B?
Well, I think like a lot of things in life and FRC specifically, you just kind of got to start with something, even if it's going to be a really low bar. It's easier to edit a page than have a blank page, and
Right.
so we kind of just started doing it. And sometimes it can be a little hard or awkward. As in both of these groups, I try to show up to support, but I don't want to run the meeting. They don't
Right.
need some white male telling them everything that's going on and what they should be talking about. So I try to show up, and sometimes everybody's just kind of sitting there quietly because they don't know what to talk about or what to do. And so those meetings can be really hard, and it can be a little bit of like, how can I help start the conversation in a way that they can run with it? And the thing that I think I've learned there is that having the events like a task that they're working towards, a goal to do, helps drive the meetings. If it's just showing up and talking about experiences they had, if they don't already have that bond built, that's kind of scary for them too. But when they get to bond and really build those connections with each other by building up our Brilliant Black Builders event or our Girls Get Together event, then those meetings where you don't have a task that you're working on can go a little bit more smoothly.
Right. So just to pull in some of my experience on a STEM thing outside of FRC, we were just working on, and this was just in high school. We were working on things like an egg drop from a bridge or whatever, right, to see if it survives, or spaghetti towers, things like that. Um, I was wondering if Spectrum had any things you might use to break the awkwardness in meetings, especially with freshmen and people that are new without those bonds yet.
Yeah, so we've actually last year we started doing a lot more of that to try to get our new students activities that they could do without having to fully engage and understand FRC knowledge too much. So we went all the way through some of the longer ones where we'd go for probably a day where we take a Friday and a Saturday, and we built a mini golf course where we split up into groups, and each team they basically be given like a full piece of plywood, 2x4s, and they could build their own mini golf hole. And then we got to kind of play it. Mostly it was all building it because then we ran out of time and didn't actually get to play mini golf, but it was fine. The building it was the important part anyway. They've done stuff with Vex IQ or Lego robots on occasion. We've done different quick tasks. We have some stuff planned for this year where we do some like specific training where we have like very step-by-step. You don't have to necessarily design anything. You just have to go in order how to build something. So we did like a rubber band car. We have like a 3D printed catapult design that we got off the internet that we're planning to do for like our really basic interest meeting this year. Like kind of one of the first things, just be like, hey, you come to this thing, you get a little toy that you can take home with you, something that you put together, and we can talk about that, how it's produced, that sort of stuff, so we can get them kind of hands-on, getting excited about the team early. And then I know also, just as we're getting probably a little bit off topic, but Andrew and I, both of our teams have had our younger students building EveryBots during the actual build season to do that as well. So it's even more of an on-ramp than kind of just thrust them straight into building your competition team's FRC robot, which is a little hard to do your first year, even your second year.
And I mean, I'm from up north. I mean, I don't have quite the diversity, or at least I don't see it with the spaces that I've been in. But when you've got a team that's more diverse like that, I guess a lot of those little activities, all of a sudden, a lot of that, any preconceived stuff, or I mean, heck, it could be anything, right? Athletes versus the nerds or the theater kids or whatever. All that can go out the window. Have you guys noticed any of that when you've been working on stuff? Or?
So I'll say instead of the athlete versus nerd aspect, the thing we usually are fighting to build connections against is Dawson versus Pearland versus Turner.
Oh, right.
So it can be very interesting to see, and I do usually see differences in how students from different schools approach problems. I find it very interesting that I can usually guess what student is at what school based on how they try to go about solving a problem. And we need both of those types of students. So when we're working together and we get both of those types of problem solving techniques, it makes the team a lot better. And it makes obviously my life a lot easier as well. And so, how can we build those connections and ignore, which high school you're at? That's their rival in every other aspect of their high school life. But now we're teammates together.
Is that
And
the same stuff, the same dynamic? Does that happen in your girls get together groups? Or
Interestingly, I don't think so.
huh,
I think it's more team wide than with the girls, and maybe it's because our girls are already, we're like, hey, you guys, let's make sure you're supporting each other, and so there's not, maybe that part's just missing. It's not as important to them, or maybe it's some kind of football testosterone driven rivalry. I have no
right.
idea.
Yeah, I
Is
think we
there
see some of that
sorry, go.
similar with our two schools, but it is different because they are gender split. So we don't see it as much of the schools, but even just in different friend groups, grades, all of that, just I think every team has to work to build that team bond and that kind of family connection that going into the first semester and as you get into build season, when you're spending more time together, you're working on projects together, and you eventually can learn to trust and rely on each other. And so a lot of that happens for us at different volunteer opportunities we'll do. If we can do off seasons, that's a big help. Anytime where you're having to work together to get something done and accomplished, and there's pressure, you build those connections, you get inside jokes, you get all of that stuff that forms you into a real team and not just a group of people.
Right. Is there anything else you wanted to cover based off of your various diversity initiatives or just ways you've attacked things? Or
Yeah,
I
I
think you
think
got
I
it
just
covered.
wanted to emphasize again that with something like our Girls to Get Together, Brilliant Black Builders, if anybody tries to go off and do one of those things, I'd encourage you to, as much as possible, encourage more team members to attend it, not just students of color or girls or whatever to be at those things. I've got a short video we can kind of show here too that while I'm talking about it, but um, it's just interesting sometimes that I know I wasn't really even familiar with some of the problems that girls go through, even on a high school robotics team until I was, 35. Like I'm still learning new things that I'm like, I can't believe that somebody gave you crap about having fingernail polish or something like that at a competition. And it's just wild to me. So getting the rest of the team to hear about those things, I think is really good and not just, having students that are together complaining or supporting each other, but really building that full team support to it.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. Before we get into our next topic, let's bring producer Tyler back on to start our giveaway of Vex Pro stuff and to talk about Fun's continued sponsor, Kettering University.
Yes, Vex Pro stuff. Let's see what they have for us today. So, hey, from our friends at Vex Pro, they are giving away you get the pick actually any of their any berry multi packs. You get to pick two of them. So, if you win, shoot me a DM. Let me know which ones you want. There's a whole bunch to choose from. Here's a little bit more about them, by the way. Vex Pro offers all the bearings most commonly used by first teams and also replacement bearings for all the odd size bearings used in Vex Pro gearboxes. So, if you're interested in winning this in chat, the keyword for today is going to be unbearable pun. One word. We'll put that in chat. There's to type that in. Make sure you're following the channel in order to be eligible to win. And we do give ourselves some extra luck because we just rig it that way for them. So we'll draw for that near the end of the show as well. Oh, by the way, make sure you, if you are a senior or you're a parent of a senior or a mentor of seniors going in, make sure you keep an eye out for Kettering University. They're starting up recruitment again for next year. So hopefully you're interested in them. Here's a little bit more about Kettering. And if you're looking at graduating with a low amount of debt or debt free, here's how you can get a little bit more about financial aid as well.
Things figuring out to pay for college, and it wasn't really until I came to Kettering to one of the Dog Days of Summer events that I figured out how I was going to be able to do that. And it was actually because of the senior chemical engineering student. She was getting ready to graduate and she had told me about all of her phenomenal experiences both on co-op and here on campus, but more importantly she told me that she was going to graduate debt-free. And that was an eye-opener for me. That was the first time I'd ever heard that from a college student, and so that's when I knew that I was sold. So really from there, as soon as I came to Kettering, I knew that that was going to be my goal. I wanted to graduate debt-free. And I did that through a variety of ways. First, of course, the co-op experience was a tremendous help, but I even looked at ways to work here on campus. So I was a federal work study student. I worked in a variety of organizations, and that not only gave me the extra funds, but also different opportunities to meet people and understand the resources here at Kettering. Also looking at scholarships not only here at Kettering University, but even from my hometown and other sources, all of this cumulatively helped me to graduate debt-free.
So Andrew, you've had beyond your various ways you've approached recruiting through multiple schools and having to deal with lots of students. That's kind of driven some needing to quantify how successful you've been throughout the years for these various initiatives. Can you explain a little bit on how you kind of identify what paths are worth following, especially when you've got a lot of students to deal with?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you mentioned, I think it's important to try to have some kind of tracking of some of that stuff. What efforts are useful and worth the time and effort? All of us are tired usually, and with the amount of stuff that we would do with FRC, and anything I can do to reduce the amount of time and effort I spend on it, and I can focus on other things, that's gravy. So that's good. So one of the things that we do on our survey that we send out for the 8th grade students to come out to our informational night is we have a couple of questions. And so if we want to put those up on screen, yes, absolutely. Some of the things that we do here are we try to ask a little bit about how did they hear about Paradox. And so I have both the full answers up there just because it's hard to read some of them. But the big thing here is that we definitely see experience with Paradox via prior FRC or prior robotics teams. So our FTC or FLL, we included VEX because for a little while we had some VEX IQ teams in the district. And then, engagement and outreach. So we have had some students that have seen us at outreach events, and definitely the school district communication. So you can see a lot from the Skyward email blast. Another thing that we usually ask them is, why they want to join Paradox. And it's usually nice to see if there's a little bit of diversity in this. Obviously, most of the people joining it are joining because they want to build a robot. But it's usually good to see if we have some people that are interested in videography or photography or things like that. So this helps make me think that some of our efforts to promote non-robot building things are hopefully being heard. We also ask the parents some informal questions if they've had kids on the team before, if they were aware that Paradox was competing at state championship and world championship levels recently. And something I haven't done yet is I need to go and take a look at years over time to see is it increasing the number of parents in the district that know that we've done these things, and what can we do to get the word out and see success here. The other thing that I've done to kind of track some of our retaining is we've got a sign-in app, and so students get IDs, and the first 2 digits are their graduating year, the 3rd digit is which school they're at, and the last 2 digits are just a counter for how many students from that grade in school. And so you can see that if we look at 22, graduating class of 22, and this 0 means they were at Dawson High School, we've had at least 20 students sign up. And these are all the students that signed in at least once this year. So this lets me know that out of about 20 students, about 16 of them were still showing up this year. And those are students that have, joined since their freshman year. Obviously, the ones that joined their freshman year are going to have the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers, those first ones. So those are things that I think are really great and useful for me to know what has been successful, or are we being successful with retaining some students.
Has Spectrum had any kind of like eyes on retention and stuff, and specifically, keeping track of students? I guess to some extent you're dealing with fewer schools and fewer numbers, so maybe it's a little less
It is,
needed
but
to be automated.
Yeah, it's definitely more of just like we don't have it nearly as laid out as Andrew and Paradox does, which is I'm definitely probably going to be taking some of their stuff and adding it to our surveys. But so just in our experience in starting the team back in 2012, we actually had we were when I joined the team in 2012, their rookie year was before I was a part of it. But we actually built at St. Agnes, so we were at the other campus. They're basically next to each other. They're separated by a parking lot. But just by moving, so we ended up getting a space built in 2014. So for the 2015 season, and just by moving, we kind of could see the difference in how the recruitment went, just because we had less of a presence over at St. Agnes when our lab was no longer there. It was harder to get some of the St. Agnes students to come over, but we were actually doing a better job of retaining the ones who did. So we almost have these 2 different recruitment problems that we're still working on how to solve, in which Agnes, it's more just how do we get them to actually choose to come over and kind of come to our first meeting. And then once they do, they stick around. But then at Strake, we always get a very big number of pretty much multiple grade levels. We'll have a huge number of people who are interested in joining right at that first year. The first beginning of the school, they'll sign up. And then by the time January rolls around, a lot of them are off doing something else.
Right.
So it's very interesting that we have these two different problems that we've been trying to work on and iterate and solve basically our entire time as a team. So that's one of the things I would definitely recommend teams doing is there's no one like right answer to recruitment. A lot of this is just trying new stuff, changing what you're doing for your interest meetings, changing what you're doing in the fall as your kind of first onboarding process, which is something we may get into in the future meeting, just kind of how you're doing training. All of those things can help get your team to where you want it to be and prepared for January, and also having the most impact on the students who need it in your communities. So yeah, one of the things we may be doing going forward is we may start by having a camp in the summer for actually incoming students. So rising ninth graders, we may be able to start being able to do something before they're even in our school and trying to reach them a little bit earlier.
Right.
To try to keep them, like Andrew said, trying to get them early and engaged with the team before they're able to kind of go off and do all the other clubs and things that they have the ability to do in high school.
Yeah, and Andrew, you mentioned too, like you've had some as like maybe sports injuries come around and whatever things shifted, where maybe that's where you can invest your time into robotics now. So do you see people all of a sudden that were kind of ghosting all of a sudden come back into the fold on occasion?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Alan had that specific example, but we've also experienced that as well. It's funny. We had a student that joined his freshman year, and then I think during his sophomore year, his older sister got an injury that she wasn't allowed to do her swimming anymore, and so she joined after kickoff in January, her senior year. Ended up being one of our chairman speakers, and is fantastic. Absolute contributor to the team in that January timeframe. And so we've certainly seen where, something comes up and then a student that wasn't showing up very much suddenly decides, you know what, I'm loving this. I'm going to spend my time on this. Or, maybe they've got a friend on the team that really pulled them in. We've definitely seen a lot of that type of stuff. What I've got up on the screen here actually right now is I was going to just also say part of what I do that I hope helps retainment is that I'm very honest in our informational meeting about what to expect from being on the team. I think it's very easy, and we've seen it in FRC2 starting rookie teams, that you kind of sell a little bit of a lie of like, oh, you can do it with only $5,000 in 6 weeks or something like that. And I think probably some teams can be like that too, of like, oh, obviously you don't need to know anything about robotics, and that's okay. But what I do say is that I expect you to know where you're going to stand if you're only showing up for less than 5 hours a week. That's going to put you in the bottom bucket of team members. And obviously the team members that show up more, get more out of the program, are more engaged in it. And so we've got, a slide that's probably 20. Oh man. Yeah, it's long. Some of it's just pictures, as we were doing some things virtually, but 20 some slides that we go through with parents about, parents and students about what to expect from the year, what to expect from costs. And we try to be upfront about all of that. And also obviously, if you've got, if you can't afford it, that we're going to support that. So we'll support you through it. So we try to be upfront and honest about it, and not have any surprises for people about stuff. And so I hope that helps retainment as well.
Yeah, can definitely appreciate that. Let's bring Tyler back on to draw for our giveaway from VexPro.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, keyword for that was unbearable pun. I think we might have a couple things from chat we'll grab too before we wrap up as well. But let's go ahead and draw for that for the 2-pack of bearings. You get to choose. Once again, if you win, shoot first updates now, a message on Discord or on Twitch so we can get that for you. And the winner of that is going to be the Dandelions. Congratulations, Danny. Congrats once again. You seem to win all the time, so congratulations to you. And reach out. We'll make sure we take care of that for you. Congratulations, and thanks a lot to VexPro for the awesome giveaway.
So I think we have a couple questions in chat. One of which, Andrew, how do you guys deal with your team numbers? Do you have like an application? Do you restrict who can be on the team or cap it at a certain number or anything?
Yeah, that's one of those questions that I ask myself every year if we need to reevaluate. Our team size, we get about 20 to 25 new students every year since 2019. Pandemic kind of push that back a little bit. But when we have a team size of 100, I don't know if we can handle that. Do we have an application process? Do we have to do what some of the, the other big name teams are doing, of have a second team? So currently we don't have, it's a survey. It's not an application. And, you just fill out the survey and you're on the team. And that survey is just information for me. I make their parents register as well, so that I have their contact information, things like that. At some point, what is in my head is we may do something where there's a survey you fill out for your first year and you're just on the team. And then there's an application to continue to be on the team after that first year.
Give people a taste.
Yeah. And because the thing is I don't want some student to self-select out of being on the team. Some of our best students have been students that if they saw there's an application for it, they would have decided that they weren't smart enough to be on the team or something, which obviously is absolutely false, but I don't need them making that decision for themselves, or, for the team, whatever. So.
Yeah, we're similar. We don't have an application specifically. We just try to get everyone to sign up, but we end up, like I said, our retention ends up being much worse through the fall. And so that's something we've always tried to work on, but we also don't mind having a relatively smaller team. So by the time the actual competitions are around, we normally are sitting at 35 to 40 students, and we'll take 25 to 30 of them with us to events. And that works out pretty well for what we can handle with the mentors that we have and everything else. And that's kind of where we always fall. And it almost is always just self-selection into who decides they want to stay on and really put in the work in the spring. Mm-hmm. But it does work out that we give a lot of introduction to engineering, and a lot of the kind of important aspects of it happen in the fall, where they're doing a lot of that, do I want to be an engineer or not? Most of those talks are happening in the fall, and we'll have 70 or 80 students at that point come through in different small groups and things like that.
Any more from chat?
I don't think so. So I think we are good.
All right. Thank you for turning into our second episode of Fundamentals. If you have any topics you think we should be approaching, please reach out on Fun's Discord at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow. Don't forget to make sure you are following our Twitch channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel under First Updates Now to stay up to date on all fun content. With a special thank you to those individuals who are financially supporting the stream with Twitch bits and or a subscription, and by clicking YouTube Join. Your support really helps us continue and to have us make great content. Thank you again to Andrew from 5414 Paradox for coming onto the show as our guest. And on behalf of our producer Tyler and my co-host Alan, I'm Sky. Thanks for watching. Fundamentals will be a monthly show, so make sure you check on the Fun Discord for scheduling. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks to Kettering University for their support of this video. Kettering University hosts 3 co-op employment fairs each year for incoming and current students. Participating in the co-op employment process at Kettering is a great way to begin turning robotics experience into a professional career to earn money towards graduating debt-free. If you are a senior, it's not too late to apply at kettering.edu/apply. Thanks to Stryker Careers for their support in this video. First alumni and mentors are making Stryker a top priority for their internships and careers. That's because Stryker knows that those in First are the leaders and innovators of tomorrow. If you want to help make the world a better place by creating life-saving medical devices and technology, get started at careers.stryker.com. Thanks for watching. If you want to join us for future fun streams, be sure to click the follow button and turn on the notification bell to know when we're live. Keep the conversation going and provide your input to our content. View archives and unique content at youtube.com/firstupdatesnow. Join our Discord at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow. And check out Fun FTC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and First Updates Now on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.